Thank you. Thank you for that. And first of all, good morning, everyone. Um, I've taken a lot of medicines today. Actually, I've been recovering from a bout of fever. So hopefully I'll do justice. If you find a little bit of low in energy, my apologies in advance. But let's make sure that we can make this as interactive as possible as well. So I will be asking you all some questions in between. And I've also made sure that I keep some time to hear your questions and answer them as well. So this was the topic that was given to me, and purpose and profit was the first question that I thought about. And I said, maybe not. But what else can it be? Purpose for profit. That kind of makes a lot of sense for many of us because we would say, we need to have a purpose for profit. But the more I thought about who I am as a person, that doesn't resonate with me as well. So if it is not purpose and profit or purpose for profit, what else can it be? To me, it's about purpose for people. And a lot of people who have worked in corporate industry or even in startup for that matter, you would always say that, hey, this is all nice to put on a slide, Ashok, but don't we all exist for making money, making a profit? And my thought over this 15 years of experience I've had working in 4 different countries is it's always a derivative. It's always an outcome. It's not the whole motive of running organization is running only to make profit, but profit is always an outcome of what you do throughout your career or in your company or as a stakeholder. Now, if you think that I have made this topic just for the presentation, I can tell you that this is really how I run the company, because whenever I think about, and when people ask me to introduce myself, I always say that leadership with love is the quote that defines me. So it's always been about people, because it's through them that we get the profits. It's not through profits we get our people. It's a bit of a cycle, but it starts from driving through people. And to give you some context, I want to share this quick example. So in 2018, so I started my career in Schindler in 2006 as a management trainee in Schindler, Australia. I worked there for about 9 years. In between, I became a general manager for a branch. And then I went to Vietnam in 2012 as a managing director in Schindler, and then 2015 to Malaysia, and 2018 I came here. So just before I came to India physically, I connected with my team. And the first person I connected was the head of the northern region. And I said, let's have a virtual call. We had a phone call. Those days, Zoom was still not necessary because we didn't have a COVID. So I had a phone call, and I was asking him a whole lot of questions. After 45 minutes, he was very uncomfortable. And he said, Ashok, not once did you ask me about numbers. Aren't you interested in our numbers? Aren't you interested in our top line and bottom line? Because the questions I was asking him was, who's your best salesperson? Who's your best project manager? Who's your best field technician? And these questions he wasn't asked before. It was always about how much sales did you make last month, last quarter? How did we grow more than market? How did we grow more than competition? And he was kind of flabbergasted. He said, why aren't you asking me all these things? And I told him that, we are going to make it happen by driving the people agenda. The better people we have, the better support we give them, it's going to help us achieve this profit, because that's what we will achieve anyways. This is a question to the audience. How much time do you think a CEO spends with his or her team? There is also some research which I will show you all. But any random answers, how much time do you think? Okay. So barely any time. Would you say what, 5%, 10 to 15%? Okay, somebody else? Okay. 2, 3%. Okay. Yeah, yeah, I'm talking about the CEO. I'm talking about the CEO, small company, medium company, large company, doesn't matter. No. On people. Yeah. 2% to 5%. You mean on people with people? On people, right? Okay. Okay, so this is some research. So they spend at least 50% and above on with one person. It may not be about people, but it may be about maybe profits and things like that, most likely. More a trick question, maybe not as well. I have my team members here, they will know the answer, I think, but I will not let them answer this. How much time do you think I spend on people topics? Okay. Okay, thank you. Um, Not quite 70, but 50% and plus I spend with people on people topics. So most of the time I'm talking about who are we going to develop, how do we get this person to the next level, what training and support we need to conduct, and things like that. So that's something that I really enjoy and I thrive on, and I really totally feel that that is what CEOs should be spending their time on. You raised your hand? Okay. Now, most of you will be thinking that this is utopia. This is so nice to see, but how do I practically take something out of this session? Well, my promise is you will take something out of this session from some examples I'm going to share. So I'm going to share with you from my 15 years of experience, 4 examples. And even if you take one example back with you, I think my job is done. And obviously, I just have 13 minutes left. So I'm going to make it succinct and brief that gets you thinking at least on one of these 4 things. So we'll start with Australia, right? I was a general manager there. I was 28 years old when I was appointed as a GM, actually 26. And before that, I've never had a P&L experience, never managed customers, people, profit, nothing. My managing director had an obscene belief in me that this guy's going to go and do really well, so I was put in as a GM. And something that I learned by practice is what I call is being a colleague is more important than being a boss. So I actually call it colleague first, boss next. And so there was one particular session I was conducting with my field employees. And whilst I was discussing with them, a particular field employee had a point to make. And, in India, we are not taught that intruding or interrupting is rude. But in Western countries, you can't interrupt people and they don't like it. So I interrupted him and I said, I spoke over him. And the person was visibly very upset about it, which I did not realize. So once I went to his site, a construction site where he was doing his work, and I tried talking to him, and he was very cold with me. I said, "What happened?" And he said, "Last week this meeting, you just shut me down. I felt totally bad about the way you behaved with me." And I was really shocked because to me, I didn't even realize this has happened. So I profusely apologized to him, and I asked him to repeat what he wanted to speak to me about, and I spent a good amount of time with him, etc., etc. But that was for me a very natural thing to do. But for him, he had not had someone who was the head of a branch coming and apologizing to a field employee who was like 5 levels below in his mind. So he went and told everyone about it. Ashok came and he apologized. We've not had someone like this who's ever done this before. It's such a small thing, but makes a huge impact. Because I did not treat him like a boss, but more as a colleague. And I think if you can first connect with your direct reports, your colleagues at an emotional level, then even terminating them becomes so much easier. Because they know that you come from the right space in your heart. You're not trying to manipulate them, or you're not trying to be political. A lot of people, just have a transactional relationship with their subordinates, and it gets very difficult to do anything, even to get things out of them, or even to do a development actions out of them, because they just think that this is just transactional. So the first thing I learned, and I would like all of you to think about, is how do you connect with your team at an emotional level, and then you start driving your business from there. The next example happened in Vietnam when I moved to Vietnam. I call this crazy recruiting. So I strongly believe that those who are doing a great job are not looking for a job. They are very well taken care by existing organizations. Maybe some of you here have been sent by your company as a retention thing, right? Let's keep my core team happy. This is what good companies do. They what I call as gold cage their top performers. In fact, we tried recruiting recently somebody from a big Indian conglomerate, and they had packaged his car, because this company also happens to be selling cars. They packaged his car as a huge golden cage that this person was looking at it as a value and negotiating with us. So what I believe is good people are everywhere. So when I'm traveling on a flight, I'm recruiting. When I'm sitting in a restaurant, I'm recruiting. When I'm going to events, I'm recruiting. When I go to colleges for a session, I'm recruiting. I'm always recruiting, because you can find those talents sitting somewhere in this audience or anywhere else that you will not find them in Naukri.com. You will not find them applying for a job. And I want all of you to think about this. Please don't depend on, here maybe most folks are HR teams, but I think we should not depend on HR for recruitment. So in 4 years in India, I've had 4 executive assistants. All of them I recruited myself. I don't depend on HR team at all for any of my direct report recruitments. And I think maybe it came from Australia, because it's such it's an expensive country. We did not have the luxury to have a lot of roles, a lot of people to help us recruit and things like that. Like as a branch manager, I was a HR, I was a finance, I was a safety, I was a logistics officer, everything. So I was used to running everything myself. But in India, you have somebody to help you serve tea, somebody to recruit, a whole lot of, obviously for, job employment opportunities as well for them. But I strongly believe that every leader can at least bring one person from their own network. It makes it so much easy. And how do you find these people? They're everywhere. So you have to put yourself out there and actively recruit. In fact, my first year, I got him through a Facebook ad of Indian School of Business. In fact, in Schindler, for example, we have 2 HR professionals running operations. I don't know how many companies have HR professionals running P&L roles. I would love to see more of that, more of HR becoming CEOs. Because HR is the biggest insurance policy for a CEO. And if they can run a company, I'm sure the companies will be much better run than, excuse me, but CFOs running a company. Because it's not about numbers, right? It's about people. The third example is in Malaysia. Those who've been to Malaysia, or if you know Malaysians, they are still divided between the 3 races, the Indians, Chinese, and Malays. And when I became the CEO there, all the Indians thought that I've come to salvage all the Indian pride. So first time I went, one of the Indian supervisors came and he said, all our people want to meet you. I said, who's all our people? He said, all the Indian employees want to meet you. I said, why? Because, you're an Indian, we thought you will help. We've been mistreated badly by the Chinese. They always want to boss over us. I said, I'm not an Indian managing director. I'm the Schindler Malaysia managing director. So let all the supervisors come. We'll listen to everybody's problem and we will solve everybody's problem. And that was the last time I heard from him. The Chinese were not so happy that they have an Indian CEO, because the first time in their history they have an Indian CEO. And the poor Malays, caught in between these 2 giants. I really felt sorry for the Malays. So any appointment we make, even if by nature, if there was a candidate who was very good and happens to be Indian, they will blame me that you're being, you're playing favorites. And if I bring a Chinese, the Indians will say he's sucking up to the Chinese philosophy in the country. So I had to really solve this problem. And that's where I learned, we all know this, right? Culture is strategy for breakfast. But driving a culture is what sets everything else so much easier to run the company. I'll just share one simple example we did. We just initiated a diversity day, an inclusion day, in fact, more than a diversity day. And I said that, we're going to put up stalls. We're going to make teams of Chinese, Indians, and Malays. And you have to come work with yourself. With the halal problem for the Malays, the cooking has to happen in a Malay house, whether you're making a Chinese dish or an Indian dish. And then they have to, dress up, put a different costume. And that, they were working as a team for almost a month. And they realized how much they had in common. When they worked together, they just loved the whole thing. A very small thing as a diversity inclusion day made them realize that together they are much more powerful than working as individuals. There's a whole lot of other things we did, of course, during the time, which made them feel that they have to be together. And the whole idea was one Malaysia concept. So if you're driving a better results in your company, try to find out what is the culture. In fact, we did a culture workshop post this inclusion day, and there's a lot of findings we found which helped us to put a detailed action plan. India, it was, the biggest thing was, we always hear this, right? यहाँ नहीं चलेगा sir, ये आपको Malaysia, Australia में सब होगा. And even with sales, they always say, sir, in India, the customers are very price sensitive, The same thing I've heard everywhere, in Malaysia, Vietnam, Australia, everywhere they'll say the customers are price sensitive. And when I came to India, so by the way, Australia, Vietnam, and Malaysia was a bit of a turnaround for me. But India was not. India was doing really well for us. But we were so obsessed about driving numbers. It was all about month end, quarter end. I used to hear words like, धक्का मारना है, तभी तो number नहीं आएगा, उसको 1, 2, 3 करा दो. I mean, get rid of him. I'm like, what is all these words, why do we have to? I said, we can drive it through people, let's do it. So when I was traveling, I was meeting technicians at the ground level. And this was not something they were not commonly, like for example, I spent this week with my Delhi team. And I did not do business reviews. I was meeting every team one by one. And so much of insights you get just by driving people agenda. And to me, agility was the key. Every country, I had to look at what was a specific problem and be agile. And that's what helped. So even for a traditional industry, I don't believe in pushing for profits because it's an outcome. And 4 years I've completed now. We've had a tremendous growth journey in these 4 years, double-digit top-line growth, and a very healthy bottom line as well. So the purpose is to build a culture and environment for my people to drive the profits. If I do it, then why do I have them? There's no need to have them. We're all overheads and we have to make it happen. So finally, I just go back to the first slide. It is purpose for people. And I'm sure if you drive this, it'll work. Thank you very much.